everyone. This is part 2 of our lesson The Lost Child. There was no reply as he was looking for his father and mother, but he did not get any reply. They were not there. He turned to look at his parents. He just turned back to see where his parents were. They were not there. Ahead of him, they were not anywhere. He turned to look on either side. On both the sides, he turned to look for them, but he didn't get a sign of them even there. They were not there. He looked behind. He looked behind also. Still, they were not there. There was no sign of them. He didn't see them. A full, deep cry rose within his dry throat, and with a sudden jerk of his body, he ran from where he stood. A deep, serious cry came out of his dry throat. Now he became fearful. He started crying. Then suddenly a sudden serious cry came out of his dry throat. And he started running with fear, with a jerk of his body from the place where earlier he was standing. He was standing on a place, and from that place he started moving here and there with a fear, with a sudden jerk of his body. Mother, father, tears rolled down from his eyes. Tears were flowing from his eyes, and he was calling or crying for his mother and father. Hot and fierce, his flushed face was convulsed with fear. Tears, as the tears were flowing from his face, hot and fierce, his flushed face. His face was hot, fierce. Fierce is actually fearful, full of anger. Here, actually, anger is fear. His flushed face, flushed means completely wet, as the tears were rolling down his cheeks, so his face was completely wet, was convulsed with fear. His face was completely, you can say, was trembling with fear, convulsed, trembled with fear, panic stricken, full of fear, full of pain, or you can say fear struck. Fear struck, panic stricken is fear struck, full of fear. He ran to one side, then to the other, hither and thither in all the directions, knowing not where to go. He ran from here to there. Hither and thither means here to there. He ran from one side to the other, from here to there, not knowing where to go. He was not knowing where he should approach, where he should go. Mother, father, he wailed. He cried. Wailed means cried. He cried, mother, father. His yellow turban came untied and his clothes became muddy. He was putting on a turban on his hand, and that turban also got untied, opened. It was now not a turban, it has opened because he was moving from one place to another. It became loosened and it opened. And his clothes also became muddy. Having run to and fro in rage of running for a while, he was running to and fro, here and there. Rage, in anger, here it's not anger, with a force. Continue to run in with a great force. For a while he ran, for a while he was running. He stood defeated. After running, he got tired, and as he did not get his parents, he did not see his parents, he stood now. He was standing at one place. His cries suppressed into sobs. Now, earlier he was crying loudly. Now those cries changed into sobs. Sobs means when you cry for a long time, then when you stop, then the loud voice of your cries slower down. Those then that time the voices which come out of your throat, those are known as sobs. Now his cries changed into sobs. A little At little distance on the green grass, he could see. At a little distance on the green grass, there was in a field there was green grass. He could see what he could see through his filmy eyes. Why eyes are called filmy here? Because the eyes were full of tears, watery eyes. So that is why eyes are called filmy. Men and women talking. He saw that patch of people were standing here and there on the grass, and they were talking among themselves. He tried to look intently among the patches of the people. He tried to look focused properly to the just to recognize, just to find out whether his parents are standing in those groups or not. He tried to look focused at those patches of people, those who were standing on the grass, intently among the patches of bright yellow clothes, but there was no sign of his father and mother among those people. But still, there was no sign of his father and mother among those people, who seemed to laugh and talk just for the sake of laughing and talking. Those who were standing there just for the sake of laughing and talking. He ran quickly again, this time to a shrine. Now he quickly moved to a temple. There was a temple also nearby, to which people seemed to be crowding, where the people were getting collected. Every little inch of the space here was congested with men. Even a small inch of place was occupied by the people. There was a huge crowd. So the place was totally packed with people. But he ran through people's legs. But he was running to move into the temple through the legs of the people. His little sob lingering. Still he was sobbing. Mother, father. Near the entrance to the temple, however, the crowd became very thick. Now, near at the gate of the temple, at the entrance of the temple, the crowd was, it was a huge crowd. Jostled each other, pushed each other. People were pushing each other. Heavy men with flashing murderous eyes. Their eyes were red, as if, and they were hefty shoulders. Those people were of heavy built up. They were at the door, at the entrance. It seemed to him that people are quite bulky, quite heavy, but still he was trying to make a way. He was pushing and trying to make a way to reach to the gate of the temple or to enter the temple. The poor child struggled to thrust a way between their feet. The poor child tried hard to make a way from their feet, but knocked to and fro. But as he was bending down, he was trying to pass through their legs. He was pushed away to and fro, sometimes in front and sometimes back, by the legs of the people, by their brutal movement. Brutal movement here means by the movement of the legs of the people or the crowd. He might have been trampled underfoot. He might have been crushed. Trampled means crushed underfoot, under the feet of the people, had he not shrieked at the highest pitch of his voice. If he wouldn't have shouted at the highest, if he had not made a loud cry, he would have crushed under the feet of people. He shouted in order to make the people aware that he is under their feet. And stooping with great difficulty, lifted him up in father, mother, a man in the surging crowd, there was a surging crowd, increasing crowd, there was a man, heard his cry, stooping with great difficulty. Here stooping means bending with great difficulty, lifted him up in his arms. He lifted him up in his arms. How did you get here, child? Now he asked. How did you come here? Whose baby are you? Who are your parents? The man asked as he steered clear of the mass, as he pushed the people around and made a clear space for them to stand. The child wept more bitterly than ever now and only cried. Now the child, after getting a support from someone, the child cried again to the highest of his voice, and he was only crying. He said, I want my mother, I want my father. The man tried to soothe, the man tried to console the child by taking him to roundabout. The man took the child to a roundabout. Will you have a ride on the horse? He asked him if he would like to have a ride on the horse. He gently asked as he approached the ring. He humbly asked the child if he would like to have a ride on the horse as he was moving near the ring. The child's throat tore into thousand shrill sobs, and he only shouted, "I want my mother, I want my father." From the child's throat, thousand sobs came out together, and he only shouted that, "I want my mother, I want my father." The man headed towards the place where the snake charmer still played on the flute to the swaying cobra. Now the man took the child just to distract him, took him to the place where a snake charmer was playing his flute and a cobra was moving in the air. "Listen to that nice music, child," he pleaded. He requested the child to listen to the music. But the child shut his ears with his fingers and shouted his double pitched strain, "I want my mother, I want my father." Now he didn't want to hear the music. He just shut his ears with his hands, or you can say fingers, and shouted with a double sound, "I want my mother, I want my father." The man took him near the balloons, thinking the bright colors of the balloon would distract the child's attention and quieten him. This time, man thought that if he would take the child to a balloon seller, might be the bright colors of the balloons distract the child and he would be calm or quiet. "Would you like a rainbow colored balloon?" he asked. He persuasively asked if he would like to have rainbow colored balloons. The child turned his eyes from the flying balloons and just sobbed. Now the child took his eyes away from the flying balloons, and again he was sobbing, "I want my mother, I want my father." The man, still trying to make the child happy, bore him to the gate where the flower seller sat. Now this time the man, still trying to make the child happy, he took him, or carried him. Bore means carried the child to the gate where a flower seller was selling the flowers. "Look, can you smell those nice flowers?" Now he asked the child to smell the flowers. "Would you like a garland to put round your neck?" He asked him if he would like to have a garland. The child turned his nose away from the basket and retract his soap. The child took his nose away. He didn't feel like smelling those flowers, and again repeated his soaps. "I want my father, I want my..." Again he started sobbing, "I want my father, I want my mother." Thinking to humor his disconsolate charge by a gift of sweets, the man took him to the counter of the sweet shop. This time, man thought that he tried to make the child happy this time by taking him to a sweet shop. Thinking to humor means just to change his mind, to make him happy. His disconsolate charge, but disconsolate means he was the child sadness, just to remove his sadness, just to make him happy. He thought of taking the child to the sweet shop. "What sweets would you like, child?" he asked. Which sweet would he like to have? The child turned his face from sweet shop and only sobbed. This time again, child turned his face away from the sweets and he said, "I want my mother, I want my father." End is not clear. I don't know what happened to the child. We are not made clear in the story that what happens to the child in the end. You see, children, in the beginning, the child wanted all those things, but later on when he was not at all interested in all those things. This is all about the story of the lost child.